gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 75.
Woo, that's a big number.
That is a big number.
That's
a
a
gigantic
big round number too. It is all even.
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
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 And, of course, we're going to be talking about nothing but Nintendo this week. All
Naturally.
Nintendo, all the time. There are no other retro consoles on the face of the planet.
I did not touch any of my Nintendo consoles this week.
I touched mine, but I'll get into it. No, we are talking Monster World this week,
Yes.
which I'm semi-excited about.
Yeah.
I'm worried that when you explain the history to me, it's going to take up the whole show and I'm going to fall asleep.
God. Yeah.
Because I thought about looking it up and I was like, no, I'm going to make Saturn tell it to me live on the air. So I'm not
when
gonna prep at all.
when I inevitably make some tiny minuscule mistake, I expect everyone to write in and tell me.
Yeah.
I feel like because I go by memory all the time on this show. I never really look anything up. So I feel like I constantly make little tiny bullshit mistakes.
The times I have looked it up, like the times I have been like, well, I'm going to fact check that, you've been completely accurate. So just quit doing it.
So I expect all of our listeners to tell me every time that I'm wrong.
Yeah. No one ever tells us anything. Well, the one time we did get corrections was from Joe on Facebook, and it was our Star Fox episode that you weren't on.
Yeah.
You were off for one episode, and we got fucking everything wrong. And it was bad. He was like, you got this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, and you're dumb. And I was like, well, shit.
So you're saying that the cast of Star Fox did not get dilapidated and become the cast of Five Nights at Freddy's?
No,
that
but
was
it
just
makes
a rumor.
sense, doesn't it? God. First they start the Rock Fire Explosion to relive their glory days.
That's my fan cannon. I'm starting it right now.
It's called a head cannon, Saturn. It's your head cannon for Five Nights at Freddy's.
No, I'm trying to get other people involved in it. It needs to be more than just a head cannon.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm down. Let's do this.
All
We'll
right.
make a website.
Yeah. Fox McCloud got a sex change, and then he went back to man, and then he became Foxy in Five Nights at Freddy's. That's my new fan cannon.
Anyway, video games are a thing that we...
Technically, that was all video game talk. Like weird video
Somehow
game talk.
it was. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I will start with stuff that I did this week.
All right.
I did so My Life in Gaming, which is an amazing YouTube channel,
Yes.
which you should watch all of their videos because they're the best.
Mm-hmm.
They did an episode on getting the best Game Boy picture.
Oh.
So they went through Super Game Boy 2, Game Boy Advance. They went through the Revo K101, just like these are your Game Boy options.
Right.
And so I watched the entire thing like 3 times.
Because you do that.
Because I do that.
Because you need the best picture at all times.
Yes!
Yes.
So, as I'm shopping for PAL GameCubes so that I can purchase a PAL RGB cable to only play
Your
Game
Boy
Boy
player.
Advance games on my GameCube. As I'm pricing this on eBay, the whole time going, I have no money for any of this.
Right.
But I'm still going to shop for it.
Naturally.
The whole time, I'm like watching the video in the background, and I'm looking at like Spice Orange GameCubes longingly, and I want one so bad.
I can't. They look so awful to me.
I love a Spice Orange GameCube with a Spice Orange Game Boy player is like that's my nirvana right there. It's
I
just
remember
fucking
when
perfect.
the cube was still present, like when it was still relevant. Everybody wanted the Spice GameCube, or they wanted the GameCube Q. And I kind of wanted a GameCube Q just because I wanted one that played DVDs.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it'll only play Japanese DVDs, so that's useless to me. And it's also like mirror finish, and I don't want mirror finish because I would just see fingerprints on it all the time.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, well, just get a Spice GameCube instead. And I started looking at those, and it just looks awful to me.
They look
Like,
great.
that same era, I had a friend who was a Dreamcast collector, like super huge, because Dreamcast was just tapering off.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved Dreamcast stuff. And he prided himself in having every color of controller and VMU that Sega put out.
Mm-hmm.
And like he had gone out of his way to get a full set of 4 of the yellow ones, because the yellow is recalled.
Right.
The yellow looks like piss. Like it looks like
It's not like a highlighter yellow.
no, it's like I'm kind of sick piss yellow. And it's awful. It's the worst looking controller ever. And I think that's why Sega recalled it, because it looked so bad. And if I remember right, they replaced it with the Smoke Black, which was a much...
That's a cool color.
Yeah, because there's one right there.
Yeah.
It is a much, much better controller than the piss yellow.
Speaking of Dreamcast, I think I mentioned it on the show. My daughter loves my Dreamcast, and she's gotten to where, because now she's mobile and strong enough to lift things,
She just runs off.
she runs into my office, grabs my Dreamcast with a game, controller, cords coming out of the back, everything, and just starts booking it with it. Like yanking the shit out of the entertainment center, pulling everything with it, yanking all my splitters out, trying to take off with my goddamn Dreamcast. So I had to give her her own Dreamcast.
So you need to record this of her just running through your house with a Dreamcast and like caption it with like Sega to Sancho's daughter currently in training.
Yeah. And then hashtag Dreamcast 2. Yeah. No, so I have an old Dreamcast that I'd gotten that was like real smoke covered and was missing the modem and it was just ugly.
Yeah.
And so I got a different one later on. And so I had that one and I was like, well, shit, here's this one. And I had to put a disc in it because she has to open it, take the disc out, put the disc back in, slam the lid shut as hard as she can, and then run away with it.
So that's her decoy Dreamcast.
Yeah, I have to have it's a real Dreamcast that works. That's the sad part. It's not like a fake one. So I had to give her, because I try to give her, I mean, the biggest skill for like little kids whenever you're a parent is distraction. It's like, oh, she wants this, let's distract her with this because she doesn't understand. No, Dreamcast, she like laser focuses on it, and it's like, oh, you want to hang out in your office and play a game while I play on the floor? I'm going to grab your Dreamcast and run out of the room and rip all your shit out of the wall along with it. Anyway, back on point.
Yeah, anyway, so Game Boy picture quality.
So they're talking about how shit the Game Boy Advance player scaling is on the GameCube. And I have one, and I've tried to play my Game Boy games on it a bunch of times, and every time I'm like, this looks terrible, I'm not going to do it. And I assumed it was because it was displaying them in 480i, because my CRT only handles 480i.
Right.
Turns out it actually scales it terribly and makes the image real blurry, so that's why, I didn't know why, but I just remember every time I do it, I'd be like, this doesn't look very good, I'm going to play on a Game Boy.
Right.
I just assumed it's because it was blowing it up on a big screen, but, I mean, that's probably part of it, but... They turned me on to some really great homebrew. So you can run homebrew through an action replay, and that replaces the Game Boy Player disc, and it gives you a ton of options like 240p and scales it up better. And so that's my new thing that I'm all about for my like 12 Game Boy Advance games that I own. So that I've already played the shit out of.
I have a couple of Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, I'm going to be borrowing them once I get my Game Boy GameCube. Once I get my Game Boy Advanced GameCube homebrew running.
You could always just borrow a copy of PSO and use that.
Will that work?
Oh, you don't have a broadband adapter for your GameCube, do you?
No, what? No, they're like $150.
Shit. Really?
Yes.
God.
A decked out GameCube with component cables and a broadband adapter is like $900 total.
That's how I used to do homebrew on my GameCube.
Yeah.
Was the PSO exploit, which I'm sure you've heard about, which was why they recalled PSO and issued the version 2.
And that game is also fuck expensive too.
Of course it is.
How do you have like this most expensive GameCube setup on Earth?
Because I played PSO a lot back then, and I played it online, so I needed the broadband adapter.
You have a broadband adapter, you have a Game Boy player, you got component
I pre-ordered
cables.
the Game Boy player. I didn't pre-order my Game Boy my component cables. I got those because somebody traded them into the EB that I worked at, so I bought them for $5. So because at the time you could only get them direct from Nintendo's website, and some dude had decided he was getting rid of his GameCube, and he traded all that in, and I was like, I didn't even know they made component cables for the GameCube, and I was like, dude, I can only buy these as just like regular AV cables, so you're gonna get 20 cents for them, and he's like, yeah, whatever. And at the time, they were $30 on Nintendo's website, but that was it, and so I traded them in for 30 cents, bought them for $5. Never thought about it again until you brought up last year or whenever that was how expensive they were to me.
They're so expensive.
Yeah.
And there's been rumblings for like the last year in the hardware communities that people are working on deconstructing them and making them work.
Which needs to happen.
So that they can make like third-party ones.
Yeah, the fact that nobody made third-party ones back in the day is somewhat baffling.
Yeah.
Because you saw third-party component cables for the PS2 and the Xbox everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Like Pelican made them, Mad Catz made them. I think Interact still made them.
I bought PS2 component cables for like $9 this year.
Yeah.
Hell, I bought the official Metal the Nice S-Video ones for like $2.
Yeah.
Like, they're everywhere.
Yeah, I still have those weird PS1 S video cables with the weird silver connectors.
Yeah.
I don't know why Sony did that. That makes no sense at all. It's not any better picture quality.
Other than that, I did spend a sizable amount of time. I spent most of my time researching for this show, which means playing a game.
Yeah.
Which is, it's nice to go, I have to go do research, and just go play games.
Yeah.
But I spent a little bit more time with my Retro Duo Portable 2, which I purchased from you.
Yeah.
And when I bought it initially, I didn't like it because any slight movement made the game freeze.
Yes.
And I figured
Any slight movement erases my save file on Lufia 2.
I figured it did that.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it out. You have to put the cartridge in a certain way, and then you can shake the hell out of it. It doesn't matter.
I was just sticking some cardboard in with it.
Yeah, well, I was I had one of the rubber controller port covers from the Retron. I was jamming in behind it, and I was actually going out to buy a roll of weather stripping to stick on the slot so that it was like stuck in there. And I was playing around with the game, and you put it in, you turn it on, and then even whenever I'm trying to actually play a game, I'd turn it on, and for a second I'd be like, all right, and I'd shake it once, and it'd log up, and I'd go, fuck this, you know? But I don't know, it's if you push it in like real hard to make it secure, it fucks up. Yeah. But if you just push it in, you're like, okay, meh, just till it's all the way in, it doesn't do it, which sounds totally backwards. Right. But so I think I'm gonna get some actual play out of that thing finally.
Nice.
But it was
you gonna get the Genesis adapter for it?
I thought about it. I thought about it only because I don't have a Genesis, and I've got a stack of Genesis games.
You don't have a Genesis?
Well, I have one, but I have no cables for it.
Oh.
And I'm not going to buy cables for it because then all I'm going to be able to do is play a Genesis, which who wants to play a Genesis?
I have my Sega mothership in the other room.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've got my Sega CD2 with the Genesis 2, the 32X. I also have the power base converter that I can swap out with the 32X at any given time.
If only you could put them both in at once.
Nope, no.
You could really have a tower of power.
You can, but they won't work.
They don't do anything. And then you've got your that was the Famicom that had the 3D glasses hooked up to it. Damn.
Well, you could the Master System had 3D glasses.
You can hook up your Miniser and your activator.
The Master System's 3D glasses, if I remember right, actually connect to the power base converter.
So you could do 32X power base converter, 3D glasses.
They won't work, but yeah.
But you can do it.
That is technically a thing you can do. Yes.
No, I have my small stack of Sega games. I just don't... Honestly, most of them I came into or got cheap, and so I don't have great ones because I never really collected for the Genesis, so I don't...
Yeah, I suddenly realized I don't know if I've ever tested my power base converter on my Nomad. I wonder if that'd work.
Totally ridiculous.
Yeah, it would be ridiculous.
Totally ridiculous.
I totally want to try it
And then you can
now.
plug in your 3D glasses on it. Oh, shit!
Actually,
anyway.
I dug out my Nomad this week.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never actually held a Nomad.
It's sitting right there.
Is it worth getting one?
No.
I was say it takes how many AA's and lasts for how many minutes?
Oh no, you have to buy the battery pack separately. It can't take batteries by default.
Oh, it's consumer grade batteries are not powerful enough for.
Yeah, you have to plug it in to play it. There was a optional. I think it was optional. It may have come in the box and I just didn't get mine because I got it used. But there is a optional battery pack that detaches from the unit that I think takes 6 or 8 AA's. And,
Wait. It's a detachable battery pack, but you still have to put batteries in.
Yes.
It's not rechargeable?
No. No. And but it does have AV out with a traditional Genesis 2 AV out port.
Wow, okay.
It has a second controller port so that you can play 2-player on it. So that when you're sitting on the bus with your 8 batteries and your Nomad and you're playing, you can have your buddy with a Genesis controller playing Mortal Kombat 2 with you trying to desperately look at that first-gen 1996 LCD that has a 10% angle of viewing.
Right.
Seriously, if you're just slightly off-center from the system...
It's like a original 3DS.
Oh, yeah. No, worse than that. It's awful. And because it's a first-gen LCD screen, like it's somehow even worse than I remember the Game Gear being as far as just like blurry refresh and like for the novelty, it's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
But for actual gameplay, no.
When I first got that Retro Duo, I spent a whole afternoon playing Game Boy games through my Super Game Boy on my Retro Duo Portable, which makes absolutely no sense. because I own like 150 different Game Boys.
Right.
Because if there's one thing I have in my house, it's goddamn Game Boys. Oh, this is nice. It's not as heavy as I thought it'd be.
Yeah, it is giant though. It's much heavier if you have the battery pack. You can see where it attaches on the back here.
Oh my god, how big is it?
It's the size of the system. Damn near. But no, actually, since you mentioned Super Game Boy, Gaming Historian had a good video about Super Game Boy this week.
He did. That was a very good video. That was very. I really want to get a Super Game Boy 2 now. I'm like dying for one.
I've been staring at him for like 15 years now.
I honestly, as big of a Game Boy fan as I am, I really don't own a lot of Game Boy games.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a lot of stuff that would take advantage of the enhanced borders and things.
Right.
I think games that I have that take advantage of them are Pokemon, Legend of the River King, and I think that's it. Those are the only ones I have.
My mother has always been a super huge Game Boy person since the first gen.
I mean, I have been too. I got into it when I was
Right.
young, so I sell the shit. I sold it all the time.
But she's always had bad vision since she was a kid. So she's always had like super thick Coke bottle glasses.
Right.
And she when the Super Game Boy came out, she was like, "Holy shit, I can play it on the TV. It's amazing." So we had to go get it that day.
Right.
And we got Donkey Kong as well because, they hyped that shit up hard. And so we got the Super Game Boy and Donkey Kong, and she played it for like a week. And she was like, "I don't want all these cords and cables across my bed. You just take the Super Nintendo back in there. I'm going to play on the regular Game Boy." And so she would just squint at her Game Boy again and just ignored the Super Game Boy. So it became mine, and I played the fuck out of it. That was
I did play
how I
shitload
could
of
play
Super Game Boy.
Yeah, that was pretty much my option for playing Game Boy games.
Yeah.
Because she had stolen all of the Game Boys in the house. They were hers, so she could link them together and trade Pokemon with herself.
I've been spending some time, and we may do a show about this in the very near future, but I've been spending some time with the Game Gear and original Game Boy libraries.
Yeah.
And just digging through stuff and checking things out. Because a lot of Game Boy stuff, they're basically Tiger LCD games.
Yeah.
And then other stuff, you're like, this is really in-depth for a Game Boy game.
Yeah, especially when you look at some of the ports are surprisingly good.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at like the Game Boy Color Mario Deluxe, there's no reason that should have been as worthwhile
Nemesis,
as it was.
or Parodius.
Oh god, I love Nemesis on Game Boy.
That's one I just bought physical a little while back because it's cheap. Game Boy games are cheap.
Yeah.
I want to do an episode, and hopefully we will soon, but it's Game Gear games that are worth your time.
Oh, both of them?
Because Game Gear especially, Game Gear's worse than Game Boy.
Yeah.
It has a lot of real
Rank
garbage.
shit.
Yeah. Which I guess it didn't matter back then because nobody could see the screen anyway to tell what they're playing.
Yeah.
So you don't really.
You could because it was backlit.
Well, it's weird that the backlit color screen was harder to see than the Game Boy screen.
Well, it's just
it was
because
monochrome.
It's because of how blurry and bad the refresh rate was.
Well, and also unless you had one of the glass front ones, you were looking through 2 inches of rubber on the front of it.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah, I remember back then, everybody that had a Game Gear, like, I remember during band in middle school, somebody whipping out their Game Gear and us all trying to stare at him playing Sonic 2. And like, where on the screen is Sonic now? Can anybody see where Sonic is?
He's in the top left quadrant. Anyway, I didn't know if you had anything from this week.
No, that's about it.
Or if we wanted to dig into a little bit of Mario Run before going Sega for the rest of the show.
I'd hooked up my Nomad.
Oh, yeah.
I brought it to work with me. Because I had mostly caught up on stuff at work.
Yeah.
And was like, I got some time to kill. I don't really want to bring my 3DS today. I brought my Vita last week. And I was like, well, maybe I could bring one of my older
Bring my
handheld
Nomad
systems.
and play Eternal Champions.
And I came in here and was looking at all my old handheld systems. Like, what do I want to bring? I haven't used my Nomad in 20 years. So I grabbed the Nomad, and I grabbed Addams Family, and I grabbed X-Men. And I brought those up there. And I played through all of Addams Family again, just because I really love the 16-bit Addams Family game. And like one of my coworkers comes up and is like, "What the fuck do you have?" I'm like, I brought
It's my Sega Nomad.
I brought my Nomad up
It
here.
plays my Sega Genesis games.
And he was like, "Is that like a shitty Game Gear?" And I was like, "No, yeah,
it's like a really nice Game Gear.
It's like that." But yeah, it mostly was just awkward.
Yeah.
It was replaying games that I've already played plenty of times in an awkward setup.
It's funny, the times that I would take a handheld to work, because I'd get the same wild hair where I'd be like, oh, I'm going to take my Game Boy Pocket or whatever.
Right.
People wouldn't stop talking to me about what is that long enough for me to
Yeah.
fucking play anything.
Yeah.
Like, I took a Game Boy Pocket and Pokemon Blue, and everyone's like, oh my god, what is that? Is that a Game Boy? Is that Pokemon Blue?
Yeah.
Cool. Can I see? Did you catch a Pichu yet? I'm like, just get the fuck away from me, please.
Yeah, I had gotten like 15 minutes into X-Men on my Nomad before I realized you can't beat X-Men on a Nomad.
Is that the X-Men game that starts with Wolverine in the snow?
No, that's X-Men 2.
Oh. 'Cause that game's hard as
X-Men
nails.
1 starts in the Danger Room. And the thing is, when you finally get through the first, I think it's 4 levels in X-Men, Magneto pops up on the screen and tells you you'll never find him because he's gone back in time and you can never chase him.
Mhm.
And the way you get to the final level to get to him is press reset on your Genesis. And that resets time and you go back in time and you find him.
Right.
There's no reset on the Nomad. And I got to that, I got like 15 minutes in, I was like, I can't beat this on here.
Yeah.
That's... I don't know if there's a way to beat X-Men on the Nomad. This is impossible now.
Shit.
And so I just turned it off and went back to Adam's Family.
I need to give my actual Genesis cartridges some more love because I've
Yeah.
recently been given a handful of them.
Yeah.
So
And you got a Retron, so it's not like you don't have a way to play them.
yeah,
You've got 2 Retrons.
yeah. One's not hooked up anymore. 2 was too many Retrons.
Yeah.
I just decided.
Yeah.
Anyway, Super Mario Run came out, or just Mario Run. He's
Super
not
Mario Run.
He's okay. It's Super Mario
Yeah,
Run.
it's called Super
Okay.
Mario Run.
I was not sold on it at first,
Yeah.
but I've been enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I found that it does scratch the itch that I have in Mario games to replay the same level over and over until
100
I
times.
perfect it.
Yeah.
Which I have to force myself not to do that when I'm playing Mario U or whatever.
Right. Because you'll never finish them.
Right, because I'll never get to the end if I
Yep.
just keep doing that, and I'm like, I have to get all the
I
the right
never
coins
play
or
games
whatever.
like that, and I'm playing Mario Run that way just to squeeze my $10 worth out of it.
Right.
Like until I black coin a level, I won't move on.
Yeah, and I realize that I do that with every new Mario game that comes out,
Mm-hmm.
and this is encouraging me to do that. And this is only $10 versus the $60 I would have paid for something similar on the Wii U.
Yeah.
Granted, it would have been 5 times longer.
I do want to say the first 3 levels are so not representative of the game in any
No.
way, and was a terrible way
Yeah,
to.
they're
it.
very much like a tutorial.
They're boring.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, they're okay levels, but it's like, okay, this is just a runner game. And then you get later on, you get multiple paths and really
Right.
complex moves to get all
Yeah.
the coins, and you're like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
My only complaint is I wish they had integrated other power-ups. 'Cause
Right.
it's just the mushroom.
Yeah.
And I play as Toad, so the mushroom doesn't do anything on Toad. So
Right.
effectively, there's no power-ups.
Yeah.
Which that's kind of the reason everyone plays Mario games.
Yep.
It's the power-ups.
It was one of the things that they did, if not first, then certainly early.
I was in my 20s before I would even play a game that didn't offer power-ups.
Yeah.
Like, you get no power-ups? Fuck off, game with no power-ups. You're lame. This game lets me throw hammers and have a tail.
Yeah.
So, suck it.
Right?
But it's fun. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it. And much like Forrest Gump, that's about all I got to say about that.
Yeah, it is pretty basic. I don't know. As much as I am enjoying it, I also still have a hard time recommending it to
Yeah.
someone else. Just because, well, recommending paying the $10 for it.
What sold me, I would say, because this is what sold me, because I played, I'd say get black coins on the first 3 levels.
Yeah.
Even if that's not how you normally play games,
Right.
because it's not how I normally do. And if you're enjoying it still, then buy
Then
it.
move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate today they added, which will be a week ago for everybody listening to it, but today they added the
Friend
friend
rallies.
rally.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to waste a ticket,
Mhm.
but you also don't get any credit or real history of
Right.
it.
But you still get to rally against your
Right.
friends,
Yeah.
which is fun.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Anyway, Saturn, please explain to us in 3 sentences or less the very simple history of Monster World.
Okay, well, it started with this Tenacious D song.
Okay, so let me explain what I know about Monster World.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's Wonder Boy and Monster World. And I know that it gets to a point where the titles have 2 different numbering systems going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know,
Well, we should really start with Wonder Boy.
yeah.
Because
And
Wonder Boy...
It's all Westone.
Yeah.
Or West 1?
Westone.
Westone?
Yeah, it was a combination of West and Stone.
And they were Sega published, right?
Mostly. All right, so
already I am confused.
All right, Westone, who previously was known as Escape,
Okay.
and they changed their name because they thought that made them sound flighty.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
Escape, with your money.
Yeah,
This was their
right.
slogan.
And so they had been commissioned by Sega to make an arcade game,
Mm-hmm.
and they made Wonder Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was time for Wonder Boy to come home to the home consoles, Sega had their, I think they called it the SG-1000 in Japan. It was the equivalent of the Master System.
Wasn't that? I think the 1000 was its own system.
Right,
and then
right.
The
The Mark
3000
II was technically the Master System.
Right. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
you know, it was all part of the same Sega 8-bit family.
Right.
Um,
It was all the same weird ass, confusing
Yes.
Sega timeline.
yes. So it was time to bring it home, and Sega was bringing it to the Master System, but Westone still wanted to make sure that they could get some money off of it, and so the Famicom was selling way more units. So
Mhm.
Hudson had licensed it to put it on the Famicom, but Sega owned the Wonder Boy name and character.
Right.
So Hudson released it as Adventure Island,
Yes.
and they replaced Wonder Boy with the president of Hudson, who is a fat guy.
Right.
And that's-
Hamburglar.
Yeah, Hamburglar.
What's his name? It's
Master Takeshi, I think, or Takahashi.
It's Takahashi. Takeshi is Takeshi's challenge.
Right, yeah, Takahashi.
Is-
Is,
It's not confusing at all.
Yeah, who in America is called Master Higgins.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the English translation
Of Takahashi.
And I do like the Japanese one because doesn't he have a little cute mustache?
Yeah.
Which is just great.
Yeah.
So Wonder Boy was basically a runner game before runner games
Yeah,
existed.
essentially. And you would collect fruit, and that would give you more time
Yeah.
to continue.
How did this turn into a game where I'm playing a Middle Eastern themed
Yes, an Arabian
woman
girl. Yeah.
with a sword
Yeah.
and an RPG?
So they had released a couple of these arcade games. Well, actually, I think they only released the one. They released that one, and then when it came time for Westone to make a sequel to it, they were like, well, these RPGs are popular.
Mm-hmm.
And so they made like a Dragon Slayer-esque sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Slayer being Falcom's series. We'll get into Falcom someday,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah.
And so they released like a Dragon Slayer-esque sequel to Wonder Boy
Mhm.
that was laden with RPG elements. And that was Wonder Boy in Monsterland.
Now there was an arcade version of that, right?
Yes, there was an arcade version
Where he was naked.
He did appear to be naked.
Well, pardon me.
Wonder
he, had,
Boy.
he had underwear on.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you look at the first Wonder Boy, he looked the exact same. He was just some dude on a tropical island in his diaper, and that's how Wonder
Wasn't
Boy
he wearing
was.
a grass skirt?
Maybe. I know Master Higgins was.
Okay, here, let me explain this. A grass skirt is thematically appropriate to wear in a tropical island setting.
Yeah, and then he
You're-
upgraded to a diaper when he went to the medieval European setting.
Your underwear is not an acceptable thing to wear whenever you are a knight.
Right.
That's not.
So-
it doesn't translate.
So yeah, Wonder Boy in Monsterland basically was him in his diaper
Mm-hmm.
in a faux European world. I have no idea where Westone was like, well, why don't we make it a sequel to that other game when we make our weird European style
Yeah.
RPG-ish arcade game?
Right.
Like, nothing made sense there.
No.
And then they made it a sequel to Wonder Boy, so they left him in his diaper. So nothing made sense. And
Which
that
in
one,
Japan, it was on the PC Engine and the PC Engine has its own version of the game.
yeah. Everything from here on out, there's Hudson version, there's Sega version. For Wonder Boy and Monsterland, there was also I think Jalico made a Famicom version.
Oh my god.
Somebody had made it. I don't remember who made it, but on Famicom it was called Sayuki World.
Mm-hmm. And on PC Engine, it was called Bakuri Man World.
Yes.
I'm butchering
Yeah.
it, but that's what it's
Yeah.
called.
And then the Famicom Sayuki World got its own sequel,
Mm-hmm.
which was completely unrelated, and it was called Wampum in America.
Wampum?
Wampum. Because they replaced the samurai dude with like a Native American dude.
Oh, so it's like a racist thing.
Yes, it's so racist.
I was thinking like Thwomps and
Nope.
Mario. All
Nope,
right.
just super racist.
Cool.
Yep.
That's all right then.
And and then Oh, and the first Wonder Boy, of course, Adventure Island got a ton of sequels,
Right.
completely unrelated to Wonder Boy.
So we're still on the second game,
Yeah.
which is Wonder Boy in Monster Land.
Wonder Boy in Monsterland.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there were 2 Wonder Boy 3s.
Okay, wait. I didn't know this.
Or maybe Wonder Boys 3. I don't know.
What?
Yeah, there's 2 games called Wonder Boy 3.
Separate games.
Yes, unrelated games. There's Wonder Boy 3.
How are they unrelated?
Completely, and they're both made by Westone.
Okay.
All right, so
Okay.
first there's Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair.
Monster Lair. Okay.
Monster Lair. Monster Lair has nothing to do with the Monsterland series. Nothing at all. It plays just like Wonder Boy 1.
Okay.
Only it has the occasional shmup level.
So it's basically Adventure Island.
Not. It has the occasional shmup level, and it gives you upgraded weapons that feel more like Gradius weapons in Adventure Island.
Okay.
So, maybe Contra weapons, because you got, like, spread shot and shit.
Which one was on the PC CD?
One Monster Lair.
So that's the one I played that was like a shmup,
Yes.
where you shoot a fish. There's
Yes,
a fish. And,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I played that one.
And,
okay.
And for some reason, when Hudson got the rights to publish Monster Lair on PC Engine,
Mm-hmm.
they got the Wonder Boy license. Sega just let them, like, do it as Wonder Boy. That was the one that Hudson published with Wonder Boy intact.
Okay.
And that one was Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair. It was originally arcade, ported to PC Engine.
Wait,
I think it was.
thought the other one was Monster Lair.
No, this is. We're still on Monster Lair. We haven't moved
Okay,
on.
so they're both called Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair?
No, we haven't moved on from Wonder Boy 3
Oh,
Monster Lair.
what the fuck?
So-
that... God
So
damn.
Hudson had published it as the weird shmup side scroller with the Wonder Boy license intact.
For listeners at home, if you don't, you're going to need a pen and paper for
Yeah.
this. And you're going to need to listen to maybe like half speed.
Yeah,
so
you'll
can
want to
keep-
rewind or you'll get an aneurysm. So Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair
Okay.
was the quasi runner shmup.
Right.
Hudson published it as Wonder Boy on the PC Engine.
Okay.
And then Sega also published it as Wonder Boy on the Genesis.
All right.
And then there was Wonder Boy 3 The Dragon's Trap. That one was designed for the Master System. Was never in arcades. It was the first Wonder Boy to not be in arcades.
Okay.
And Westone had started working on Dragon's Trap and Monster Lair at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And one was always going to be a console game and one was always going to be an arcade game.
Mm-hmm.
And Sega had made the executive decision that they would both be Wonder Boy 3. So,
On different consoles.
on different platforms.
One of which is not even a Sega platform.
Well, it was originally arcade. It was
Okay.
published by
Okay,
Sega
yeah,
in
yeah, I'm
arcade.
with you.
Yeah. So Dragon's Trap was designed with the Master System in mind. The problem is, by the time it was done, the Master System was done in Japan
Mm-hmm.
and was not getting any more games.
Yeah, I was about to say... Okay, that was a weird audio fuck up. Do you have sound?
I have sound.
Okay.
And it sounds
Okay.
great. All right. Should I resume?
Yes.
All right. So the Master System pretty much dead at that point.
Okay.
And but it did come out on Master System in the US and in Europe and I want to say Brazil as well.
Okay.
But it did not come out in Japan. So Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's
Isn't
Trap.
Westone a Japanese company?
Yes. So is Sega for that matter.
Oh my god.
So Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Trap didn't come out in Japan until the PC Engine port, which Hudson removed Wonder Boy from, and in Japan called it Adventure Island.
Okay. So we're still on the third
Yeah.
tier of games
Yes,
right now.
we're in the second sequel area.
Okay.
So fortunately, Hudson did not call it Adventure Island in America because we already
Uh-huh.
had Adventure Island. So in America, they called it Dragon's Curse.
Which was on PC Engine.
Yes,
On a Hue card.
yes,
Pardon me. On a turbo chip.
yes.
So explain to me
Mhm.
how the fuck this turned into Monster World 4.
Okay, so
That does not have a
right.
wonder or a boy in it.
right, all right. So you had Wonder Boy and Monsterland. That was the first in the Monster World series.
Okay.
The second one was Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Trap, which eventually came to Japan on the Game Gear after the next Monster World game had already come out on Genesis as Monster World 2.
I like to imagine, you know those scenes in like thriller movies where like some dude's tracking a murder and he has pins and yarn everywhere? That was just the Westone, like, that was
Yeah.
one of their walls in their office.
Every time that I read the history of Wonder Boy, I imagine Tim Curry selling it to me, dressed as the butler from Clue while running around the house. Like, maybe Wonder Boy 3 happened over here, or it was in the kitchen with the cook, and then they just run across the house. So yeah, eventually Dragon's Trap became Monster World 2 on the Game Gear in Japan. Okay. And that was the first time they saw it. And it didn't... The title screen just says Monster World 2. It doesn't mention Wonder Boy at all, but he is there. Also, the way Master System carts work, they have multiple region programming, and depending on the region of system you plug it into...
It just switches to that.
Yeah. So... My Retron constantly thinks that I want to default Master System games to Japanese. So when I plug in my copy of Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Trap into my Retron through the Master System Power Base converter, it pops up as Monster World 2. So they had planned on a Japanese release that never happened.
So we're currently at Wonder Boy 3 Monster World...
Monster World 2.
2.
Yeah.
All right.
The next game was Wonder Boy in Monster World.
No numbers.
Yeah.
As if he hadn't been to Monster World before.
Yeah. Here's the best part. In Japan, that game is called Wonder Boy 5 Monster World 3.
Okay.
which sounds like a boxing score.
Now, this is the one that was also Dynastic Hero on PC
Yes,
Engine, right?
It was Dynastic Hero on the PC Engine, and all the characters were replaced with bug-themed things.
Of course they were.
Because Hudson.
Because that's another one I've played. I'm trying to remember as we go through this which ones of these I've played and have not played. And that's one I have played.
Yeah. So yeah, you've got... I love the Japanese title. I love Wonder Boy 5 Monster World 3. There was never a Wonder Boy 4.
Right.
And for that matter, there was never a Monster World 1.
How did they get to 5 then?
Because there were 2 3s.
That doesn't mean you get to call it 5.
Apparently it does. So...
I guess they just did the Square Enix thing where they're like, all right,
better catch everybody up.
Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, and 7.
Yep.
Here.
Yeah.
Here you go.
So yeah, that in every other territory, aside from Brazil's an exception to all this.
Oh, God.
In every other territory, it's just called Wonder Boy and Monster World, which is, of course, naturally followed up with Monster World 4.
Right.
And Monster World 4 did not leave Japan until 2008.
Right. It was a fan translation for years.
Yeah, there was a fan translation for like 6-7 years there, which was fine. But then when the official translation came out, Sega put some serious polish into the official translation.
Oh, yeah, and we'll dig into it.
Yeah, and it's a very nice translation for at the time 15-year-old game.
Yeah.
And
now 20-year-old game.
Yeah, and it ended up coming out on 360, PS3, and Wii. I checked; it is not available on Steam as one of the Mega Drive classics, which is a little sad.
You think they'd put that everywhere?
Right.
Anyway, so this is all the lead up.
Yes.
Required to discuss Monster World 4.
Oh, yeah, Brazil.
We got to...
So in Brazil, Sega licensed all their shit to this company called Tectoy. They published the Master System, the Genesis, most of the first-party games, etc.
Right.
There was some popular comic or cartoon or something in Brazil called Monica and Her Friends.
Oh, my God.
And so Tectoy, in their infinite wisdom, rebranded all the Wonder Boy games to Monica and Her Friends, and gave them all different names and released them in a different order.
But Wonder Boy stars, except for the fourth one, the fourth Monster... Shit. It's a guy.
Aside from Wonder Boy 6 Monster World 4.
Did they make it Monica?
Yeah. Yeah, they replaced the sprites with this Monica character in all of them.
Okay, so Monica's just running around in a diaper.
Yeah. Oh, no. They gave her clothes. And they replaced all the like enemies with like characters from the comics, and they replaced a lot of the character sprites. Like it's like a
well, it's just like with Monster Land in Japan, they re-sprited the whole thing, or Dynastic Hero or anything else.
It's kind of like the Hudson ports, only it plays more like a weird fan ROM hack, and of course it's all in Portuguese.
Right,
but yeah, it's
Brazil.
So
it's just Monica and Her Friends 1 through 5.
Yeah, and really Sega in Brazil is like a different character altogether because of Tectoy.
I would love to do an episode on that. I don't know that the research has been done or that I'm able to do the research, but I would love to.
Yeah. I would love to know more. I would love to speak to someone who grew up in Brazil on Sega shit just to find out what happened.
Yeah. If you grew up in Brazil and you're listening to our show and you speak English, because I don't speak Portuguese, then let us know. Because we'd love to have you on.
If you made it this far into the episode and you don't speak English,
congratulations.
Yeah.
You picked a bad episode to start on. This is a really confusing one.
Yeah.
I speak English and I don't know what the fuck is happening.
Right.
Anyway, all of this to talk about Monster World 4.
Yeah.
Which is Wonder Boy 6, which does not have Wonder Boy in it.
No Wonder Boys in Monster World 4.
And this one was also not licensed by Hudson or anybody else.
Right.
None of that weird shit.
Yeah, for some reason that was the only one in the series that Hudson didn't license.
Mm-hmm.
There is rumblings and rumors, and maybe somebody had been able to get an official answer or not, but I wasn't able to read it. But from what I have read over the years, the rumor was always that even though Wonder Boy remained entirely Westone's character and or programming, and they could license it as they want. The Monster World franchise was technically owned by Sega, which is why all those got drastically rebranded when Hudson released them. And by dropping the Wonder Boy character and making it a Monster World specific game, Sega was able to control more of the copyright on it, and that's why we didn't see a Hudson version.
That would make sense.
Yeah, that's the rumor that I have heard. No confirmation.
So, going by timeline,
Yeah.
because I did get confused when I saw Wonder Boy 5, because I kind of tried to do a little bit of research.
Yeah.
And Monster World 4 is the last one,
Yes.
and there
It
are
is
no games
canonically
after that.
There has not been a Wonder Boy since then. There's not been a
Not
Monster
that
World
Monster
since
World
then.
4 was even a Wonder Boy.
Right. Yeah, there hasn't been a
Because it's
Wonder
not.
Boy or Monster World game. Because really, you kind of have to treat them like separate franchises with their own numbering.
Yeah.
Thus, Wonder Boy 5, Monster World 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Which should have been Monster World 4.
It should have been Wonder Boy 4. Because there were two Wonder Boy 3s.
Okay, two
But
Wonder
there
Boy-
was never a Monster World 1. Wonder Boy in Monsterland is treated as Monster World 1.
Son of a bitch.
Yes.
So, all of this to talk about Monster World 4.
Yeah.
Which I played because I wanted to do an episode about something non-Sega specific. We have so much time to talk about this game.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Now, there are some new Wonder Boyish things coming.
There are some new... Yeah.
Because there's Monster Boy, which is actually got some input from some of the creators at Westone who created the original Wonder Boy.
Mm-hmm. And the
Which
fact
is-
that they call it Monster Boy just pisses me right the shit
Yeah,
off right now. Monster Boy 2, Dragon's Trap 4, The Dragon's Curse.
Yeah.
Monster
Yeah,
World.
so there's Monster Boy, which is going to be a new, completely unrelated franchise.
Yep.
With the blessing of the team from Westone. And then there's also a full remake of Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Trap, which is being called Wonder Boy 3 Dragon's Trap. Actually, I think they're just calling it Wonder Boy Dragon's Trap.
Oh, God.
Anyway,
They're going to call it Wonder Boy Dragon's Trap 3, and then it's just going to really piss people off.
Yeah, they're going to call it Wonder Boy Dragon Trap 3 Monster World 2.
The best part is that to make it even more weird and shitty looking, all of these use Roman numerals in their titles, too.
Yes.
It's, God damn it.
Yes.
Anyway.
So, yeah.
Monster World 4. I had
Yeah.
never played the game. I remember when it came out on the Wii Virtual Console and everyone made a big stink about it, and I was like, I don't understand what the ordeal is.
It was a big thing because, one, it was the first game on Virtual Console that was not originally released here and received a whole new translation. Nobody had done that. In fact, I don't think anybody's done that since. Like the few import titles we see on Virtual Console are usually just left in whatever broken English they were in the first place.
So, quick recap. It is an action-adventure game. I wouldn't call it an RPG of any stretch of the imagination, but action-adventure, it plays like a Zelda Light.
Yeah, it's somewhere between Zelda 2 and Metroidvania.
It is like Arabian Nights themed. You do play not as Wonder Boy, but as Asha, who is trying to become just basically standard storyline. I want to become some awesome warrior. Cool, go kill the great evil.
Now-
All right, here we go. Let's go do it.
If you're just looking for Arabian-themed games after Monster World 4, just move on to Shantae, because none of the other Wonder Boy games have anything to do with that.
No, not at all.
But if you just want to play around with various themed games, just jump back and forth between Sega and Hudson Wonder Boy games.
Yeah. Now, the similarities to Shantae were pretty striking to me pretty much immediately. I did a little bit of digging, and there's no definitive answer, but Matt Bozon is the artist on Shantae.
Yeah, from way
And
forward.
I've heard conflicting reports that I've heard people say that he's denied that he even knew Monster World 4 existed.
Right.
I've heard people say that he played it after the fact. I've heard other people say that he's never played it.
Yeah.
The evidence against the argument that he was unaware of it is in Shantae 2. I haven't verified any of this.
Right.
There are reports that there are assets in Shantae 2 that are straight ripped from Monster World 4 that were clearly meant to be placeholder assets
Right.
and never got replaced.
Now, granted, by the time that the sequel to Shantae was coming around, plenty of people could have pointed it out to them.
Right.
And then they could have gone back, played it, seen it, and then borrowed some sprites and whatnot.
So, because a lot of places don't say it outright, but they very much, whenever they're talking about Monster World 4, they're like, oh yeah, and its spiritual successor, Shantae, which
Right.
makes it sound like
Yeah.
that was the intent.
Right.
When, based on what I've heard, at least from reports and from Way Forward, is that was not the intent.
Right.
We just made this game. It happens to be thematically similar, and the
Yeah.
main characters happen to be very similar.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Right.
But yeah, if you are in the mood for more like Arabian Nights themed
Mhm.
pseudo action RPG
Right.
gaming,
Then Shantae is the direction you would want to go.
Right.
And there is a sequel to it that came out this week.
which and this is totally eating up time for Monster World
Yeah.
4, but I'm not a huge fan of how sexualized Shantae is.
Yeah.
It gets a little, kind of feels a little weird sometimes.
Honestly, the pirate chick, the enemy, she seems even more sexualized
yeah.
than Shantae herself.
I remember it started hitting me in the face immediately on the Wii U version that came with a Humble
Yeah.
bundle.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is kind of
And by hit you in the face immediately, you're referring to her breasts that
the
hit you in
giant
the
tits
face.
that were coming out of my. Anyway, Monster World 4. I had no experience with the game, no idea going into it. I didn't beat it because the dungeons are so fucking
They're
long.
really long.
I got about halfway through it, and I very much was enjoying it. I do love the game visually.
Yeah.
It is very
Oh, yeah.
visually striking.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was a late Genesis
Yeah,
game
it was
or
it was
what.
94, so that was the same year the Saturn came out in
Mhm.
Japan,
Mhm.
I think. Yes. So, yeah, it was a late Genesis game, really, really polished.
And some of the they're sparse, but there are some cutscenes. Like you get a genie to go to the main town,
Right.
And you save a couple other creatures, and they give you these little mini cutscenes.
Right.
They're very well animated.
Yeah.
Some of the best sprite work I've seen on the
Oh yeah,
Genesis.
yeah. It's some of the best sound on the Genesis too.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that next because I'm not a fan of Genesis sound. I know some people are, and I know that the issue is that a lot of people didn't use the Genesis sound chip right.
Right.
They tried to make Super Nintendo style music, and on the Genesis, that sounds terrible.
It sounds like garbage.
It's like playing like heavy metal on an acoustic. It's just
Yeah.
going to be weird.
Yeah, yeah. Capcom.
Yeah, Capcom. So I was expecting like weird, kind of tinny, farty sounding Genesis music,
Which is what you get most of the time.
yeah, and it is fantastic soundtrack, very very well done. So
Oh, yeah.
technically, the game is very impressive.
Yeah.
Um,
The gameplay is super solid too.
I do love that it is kind of that sort of classic Monster Boy Land worldish kind of gameplay where it's basically a platformer where you can get upgraded armor and you fight
Right.
stuff. In lieu of spells, unless you get them in the last half of the game, which I haven't made it to, you have an animal companion which you upgrade as time goes along.
Right.
So it gets upgrades in between dungeons and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the animations that of Asha interacting with it change as it gets bigger as well.
Right.
To the point that like now mine's so big that when she lifts him up to throw him, he like kind of crushes her, so she kind of doubles over.
Right.
So all of that very impressive.
Yeah.
As far as playing the game, it honestly the moment to moment gameplay kind of drags for me.
That's fair.
A lot of it is just because the puzzles they're not even really puzzles so much
Right.
as like here are some obstacles.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, that's fine, I guess. It's oh, look at this puzzle. You got to move a block and then the door opens.
Yeah.
You did it. So a lot of it feels like busy work.
Yeah. As much as I have really enjoyed the franchise as a whole, my biggest complaint about it is always that I get stuck in the grind near the beginning of the game, because enemies drop very, very little money.
Oh yeah,
and
then
everything costs a fucking fortune.
by the second dungeon, it's everything's 10,000 gold, and I've got
At
like
least.
5,000. Now, for people that do want to play Monster World 4, and I do recommend it. Again,
Yeah,
it gets a little
absolutely.
tedious, but near the beginning of the game, you can enter a debug shop and max out your money and buy the
Oh,
best
yeah,
gear. But honestly, that kind of removes.
Most of the game.
Yeah, because most
Yeah.
of the game is grinding and getting gear. Once
Yeah.
you take that out of the equation, well, now it's just a platformer
Right.
with bolted-on RPG
It's-
elements.
Now it's a very simplistic platformer.
yeah.
Which I don't think Westone was ever known for advanced technical platforming.
Yeah,
They
but
were,
I mean, honestly, what kept me playing was the sprite work,
Mm-hmm.
how technically impressive it is, the sound. It is one of those games where it's charming enough,
Yeah.
the themes are charming enough, and the interactions between Asha and the Pepelago
Yeah.
are
adorable.
they're funny enough
Yeah.
that I wanted to keep playing,
Right.
and I probably will. I don't know. I'm probably gonna start doing research for next week and just fucking put
Yeah,
it down. But
there's no magic in 4. Now, granted, in 3, the magic was so overpowered, ludicrously overpowered, that you could just tear shit up in that game with your
Yeah.
magic. So I think they kind of tried to correct that, but they overcorrected it by taking out the magic altogether. Granted, the little Pippi Longstocking bird, it is still functional enough to take the place.
oh yeah, it's very useful, and I mean, certainly the dungeons are designed around interactions you
Yes,
have with it. So
right.
the long jump you can get with it. I was struggling with a water section
Mm.
for a while that I couldn't figure out until I realized you can call your Pepelago, and he catches you out of the water and pulls you up
Yeah.
above it, and that was the mechanic it wanted me
Right.
to use.
Yeah.
So the depth that they get out of this one character,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the game's about your companion more so than it's about Asha half
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
And the animations are great. Like early on, when you get him, you have to go into a dungeon where you're literally standing on him to walk over lava
Yeah.
and holding him over your head to not get hit by flaming boulders. And this poor little creature, you just beat the hell out of it. Like
Yeah.
I think it takes the crown from Yoshi as far as abused animal companions.
Yeah, the only serious issue that I have with 4 from the times that I have, because I've been attempting to play through it since the fan translation first came out, and I would constantly sit down and start it over and over again.
Right.
But I have a hard time getting through a game on an emulator.
Right.
I always have. But now I went ahead and bought it on my on my Xbox One. But the only serious complaint I have is how long you have to go before you get your companion, which isn't a ton of the game, but it's a long enough of an introduction that it can, because that you have to get through that whole first dungeon,
Oh yeah.
and that can be long enough that it can turn some people off.
Yeah, I mean, if it's your first time playing, then
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it got to a point where I printed out a guide, which is kind of superfluous, but there are
Right.
mostly it's for boss strategies is what I
Right.
use the guide for. I do want to talk about, because I was playing the fan translation.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the official translation, which
Yeah.
is on the Wii U Virtual Console and in the Sega Vintage
Yeah,
Collection.
which is on 360 and PS3 and playable on the Xbox One.
Yeah, it's got the backwards compatible.
Yeah.
The font in it, what they did is it's a stylized font
Right.
made just for the game,
Yeah.
which adds a ton of charm
Yes.
to the text.
It
Now,
makes the localization look more legit.
right now the little bit of it that I did play, because I didn't want to play the game twice.
Right.
I didn't have time to finish it once. But the little bit of it that I did play, it cut out a lot of, because to save, you talk to this old sage,
Right.
the sage or
Yeah.
whatever he's called, and he's always making like kind of almost lewd remarks.
Right.
He's like this goofy, crotchety, pervy
Yeah.
old man, and they definitely seem to have toned that
Yeah.
down in the official translation,
Right.
which loses a little bit of the charm there.
Yeah. I think they were trying to go for a certain rating.
Yeah, I'm sure like pervy old man talking
Yeah.
to young girl is not.
Yeah, which is
That's not
totally
great.
legit in Japan.
Yeah, it's fine
That's
there.
it's a known character trope in Japan.
But in America, people get all butthurt about
yeah,
pervy
yeah.
old men talking
Right.
to young girls.
Right.
It's just prudes. Prudes. Now, the Vintage Collection, is that done by M2?
Yes.
Because M2 did the PS2 version of the Monster World
Right.
Collection.
Yeah, they also did the PS3 and 360 vintage collection.
Mm-hmm.
And really it is, if you're looking to get the game now, if you haven't already purchased it,
Right.
I definitely recommend it on PS3 or 360 over
Mm-hmm.
the Wii, because of the price. Because on the Wii, you would have to pay, I think it's either $6 or $8 for it on the Virtual Console.
Does it use the import?
I don't
premium
remember
or
if
no?
it uses the import premium or not.
Okay.
And so it's either $6 or $8 on the Wii,
Mhm.
whereas on the 360 and the PS3, it's $8.99,
Mhm.
and it comes with Wonder Boy and Monsterland and Wonder Boy and Monster World all in a collection.
Mhm. And the interface on it is like a little, like Sega Wonder Boy shrine.
But yeah,
too.
you can set custom borders, you
Mhm.
can set screen resolution, you can set scan lines, any number of very specific things that someone who owns a CRT would really appreciate. It is M2. They definitely put that
Right.
M2 touch on it,
Mhm.
and it's a really clean, really nice port there.
I was watching a video and I can't remember who did the video, so I can't really give the credit for it. But
Right.
he was talking about how the best feature in the Vintage Collection.
Mhm.
Oh, it was Classic Game Room, their spin-off show, Undertow or whatever. Talking about how the best feature is the sound test mode. I don't know if you checked that out in the Sega Vintage Collection.
Not yet.
But it has equalizers for each sound
Oh,
channel.
nice.
So you can play the music, and it'll show each sound channel and how it's being utilized.
Ah.
And Sega fans are really hardcore into their sound.
Yes.
Because I'll just say this: if you can tell the difference between a Master System with FM synth or without FM synth, then you are a true Sega fan. Because I can't tell a damn difference.
Yeah, my thing, I can tell the difference between that. My thing is, I'm constantly told that my Genesis 2 has grossly inferior sound to the Genesis 1.
Mhm.
Now, the reason I have the Genesis 2 is because there is a AV cable for it that has stereo sound
Yeah,
versus the Genesis 1, which does not.
mono.
It only has mono, and somebody has made a custom AV cable for the Genesis 1 that plugs into the back for video and then loops around to the front headphone jack for stereo sound. Just so that you can get stereo sound out of the Genesis 1, because they all say the sound is so much better. Those are the people that I can't compete with.
Sega nerds
I
are
cannot tell the difference.
hardcore into sound.
And this is gonna sound shitty because this is coming from a Nintendo fan, and I'm going to preemptively apologize to
We're
any of the
finally
Sega
doing
fans.
a Sega episode, and you're like, "You fucking Sega nerds!"
And I want to apologize in advance for this shitty thing I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Sega fans are very, very, very specific about their sound, and the Genesis still sounds like butt, no matter what you do. It sounds awful. I don't care. I keep hearing from all these people, oh, you can do this and this. Oh, it's just such a great sound. It's really not. It always sounds like a staticky mess.
Yeah, well, to be fair, so much Genesis hardware has aged poorly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean...
I had it when it was new and it sounded
But would
like
you have
butt.
known in, like, 1993?
Yes.
Would you-
Yes. When I listened to Final Fantasy 4 or 6 on my Super Nintendo, and
Yeah.
I was like, this is an amazing soundtrack, and I want to buy this on CD. And then I listened to Phantasy Star 2, which I really love the soundtrack to Phantasy Star 2, but it sounds like it's coming out of a cat's asshole. It is a staticky mess. I love the game. I love the soundtrack.
Yeah.
But I would never listen to it with headphones on.
Maybe that's why Sega fans are so hardcore into sound, is because you got to put some work into a
Yeah,
Genesis to get some
absolutely.
good Genesis sound.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I love the soundtrack to Phantasy Star 2. It's a phenomenal soundtrack, and I love hearing OC remixes of it because there is some amazing music.
Oh, yeah.
But that original soundtrack sounds like butt. Just throwing it out there.
There you have it, folks. Sounds like butt. That's Anyway, back on topic, Monster World
Yeah.
4. I would say check it out.
Yeah.
I would say like you said, get it in the Vintage Collection.
Definitely.
Because you get other games, it's cheaper to do it that way.
You get to experience 3/4 of the Monster World collection.
I
you get
truly-
to experience 1, 3, and 4.
I truly have enjoyed. I did enjoy Dynastic Hero, whichever version that is.
Yeah, that is Monster World 3. That is Wonder Boy 5 Monster World 3 Dynastic Hero.
I didn't finish that one either,
Right.
but I played a good chunk of it. I enjoyed
that one
that game.
feels longer to me than Monster World 4 does.
I enjoyed that game more than I've enjoyed Monster World 4.
Yeah.
Monster World 4, the aesthetics and the cuteness kept me going. Dynastic Hero, that was just a solid game, and I was thoroughly enjoying it.
If I have to rate them, I would say that from a technical perspective, Monster World 4 is definitely the pinnacle. Like, it looks the
Oh,
best,
yeah.
it sounds the best, the control feels super, super fluid to me.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as a gameplay perspective, I have to give the nod to either Monster World 2 or 3, which would be Wonder Boy 3 and 5.
God damn it. No one even knows what you're recommending. No one has any idea.
Personally, Dragon's Curse on Turbo is my favorite. I would give
That one I've not played because it's a Hue card.
yeah,
That means I gotta buy it.
I would give the nod to Dynastic Hero or Wonder Boy and Monster World as probably the best gameplay wise. I'd say that's, if you're looking for just a deep, meaty game, that's probably the one I'd go with.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Anyway, that's it for Monster World 4.
Maybe someday after we get a Rosetta Stone, we'll touch on the Wonder Boy series again.
Again, I did enjoy it. I couldn't even tell you exactly why I even picked it up. I was scrolling through games and it just struck me, and I just had a wild hair and decided that.
I think
That's
you have
the game.
my Genesis library on your RetroPie.
Yeah, that I was scrolling through and I was like, Monster World 4. I know that's a weird game from a weird lineage.
Yeah.
Let's play that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had all of the Wonder Boy games on there.
I did have a moment because I played Monster World 4, the official translation, on my Wii on my CRT. So I had one of those moments where I switched back to my CRT and played for a bit, and then I went back to my LCD on my RetroPie,
Right.
and I was like, it's just not the same. And I'm sitting there like, CRTs just have this magical phosphorus glow that you can't
It's the
get out of
cancer.
it's the X-rays shooting into your skull. That anyway, this is our last show recorded pre-Christmas.
That's true. Yeah.
And I did want to make everyone aware of some things that are out there. Now, by the time the show goes out, these posts will be old, so you may have
Sure.
to scroll back a little bit. Last week's episode, we did give everybody a free episode of Classic Corner attached to the end of the show, and I hope you all listened to
Yeah,
it.
go grab it.
On our Patreon, you can now download for freezies the first and second issues of Retro Warriors magazine, because I know the Patreon, we talk a lot about the magazine and bringing out of hiatus and the magazine this, magazine that, and I realized a lot of people probably haven't read the magazine.
Right.
So it is there. It is free. You don't even have to be a patron to go
Right.
download it. So even if you just want to go download it and you're not on our Patreon, that's just go get it, read
Yeah.
it, enjoy it, have fun with it.
Right.
And this is our thank you episode.
Oh.
So this is the last episode we're going to record this month, this year even, and it is time to
Wait.
thank. Isn't it? Is it? Oh
No,
God!
I think we've got one more that we're recording this year on the 29th.
but not another one that's releasing.
No,
this.
not another one releasing this year.
This is our last one. There
Well,
we
the,
go.
the
Okay.
Patreons will be able to hear it this year.
Right, they will.
But everyone else doesn't get to hear us until next year.
Oh my God, 2017.
Yeah.
Which hopefully it's better
Can't
than
be worse.
2016. Yeah. That's true. It can't be worse. Trump
Yeah, it
can't be
can.
elected again. Anyway, I'm sorry. I do want to thank our patrons.
Uh-huh.
So let me read through this
Oh,
list.
shit, Donald Trump was a Patreon. We shouldn't have made that
Yeah,
joke.
thanks Donald Trump for contributing to our campaign.
That's likely.
Okay, from the top, I do want to thank Rob Powers, who's our newest video subscriber.
Oh.
I want to thank Justice Allison, who's been with us liked us on Facebook, has been around for a while. I don't know that I've talked to the person directly, but has been floating around. I've seen the name several times.
An awesome name.
I do want to thank Kevin Donlin, Nick Brown, Michael Winters, our own Andrew Derry.
What?
I know. He gives us money, and he does Classic Corner. What a guy.
He could have just given me Wendy's. That would have meant just as much.
No,
No,
it wouldn't have. I want to thank Robbie Cervantes.
Ah.
I want to thank
Who's-
Keo Killa.
I still can't hear Robbie's name without thinking of the
Soul
dude
Calibur?
from Soul Calibur.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I want to thank Keo Killa, who you can find on YouTube.
Mhm.
I want to thank our newest patron, which is Edward. Now Edward. I'm sorry, I'm gonna screw up your last name, so just listen to me screw it up. Are you ready to hear this?
Yeah.
Edward Majewski
Let me see this.
Jr. Okay, it's right there. Can you?
Nope.
Yes, I got it.
I think you. We're
Edward-
gonna screw that up.
I want to thank Grady Haynes. I want to thank Mike Spanakos, who also does a show, which is called Video Rangers,
Mhm.
Video Rangers podcast. I want to thank my wonderful wife,
Aw.
who I get money from Patreon, and I put it in the bank, and then she takes it out of the bank and gives it back to the Patreon. It's a wonderful loop we're in.
Yay.
It's great. And I want to thank Mark Meredith from Australia. I won't do the voice.
Aw.
Not doing. I'm from Australia. All right, I did
That
it.
was the worst voice ever. That wasn't an Australian
from a-
accent.
it's from
That
a-
was Mickey Mouse accent.
It's from a thing. I forget the thing. Anyway, thank you so much to all of our patrons.
Indeed.
We do have new Patreon stuff happening all the time. Classic Corner has now gone weekly.
Yeah.
So you can listen to that every Saturday.
Which is really exciting because I really enjoy.
I really enjoy it too.
I know it's part of our show, but I really enjoy it.
I enjoy it because it's like outsider art. Because I'm
Yeah.
listening to Andrew play these classic games that I've played
Right.
for 3
Decades.
decades now. And he's never played them before. And he's
Right.
like, Ice Climber sucks. And I'm like, welcome to 1986, dude. We all
Seriously.
knew Ice Climbers suck. Anyway, thank you so much to all of our patrons out there. We do have new things in the works. Again, Classic Corner is weekly. I've released a few different things, old episodes, stuff from the archives on our Patreons. There's plenty of content out there for your all of your listening needs.
I humbly request all these Sega audiophiles out there to please write in and tell me that I'm wrong.
Yeah, actually, I don't have it, but I'll leave it in the show notes. We have a phone number if people want to call in and scream at Saturn.
Yeah, to tell me how wrong I am.
I'll just give Saturn's full name and address right now on the show, and you can just mail him whatever you think about his opinion on Sega.
Is it a U.S. phone number?
It is a U.S. phone number.
Okay, so if you're in Australia and you're a huge Sega fan, you'll want to set up an American Skype account through a VPN
Well,
first.
it's a Google Voice number, so I think you can do worldwide. Or...
They can, but it'll cost money.
Oh, if not, just get Google Voice.
So
and
set up a U.S. Google Voice number through a VPN, and then call us from that.
Yeah.
That way, it doesn't cost you a ton of money to tell me how wrong I am.
Right. Don't call us from a landline in a different country.
Yeah.
You'll get boned.
Right.
Anyway, we will be back in 2017 for our $4 net patrons. We will be back before 2017.
We're gonna find an
Post-Christmas.
even more obscure series to cover next time. It'll be Enix's Heaven and Earth series.
I don't
next
think
week.
there is a more confusing series.
No.
Like there's literally not one.
No.
Can't even think of one.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, Final Fantasy 3-6." I'm like, "Have you heard? Have you heard the good word?
Have you played Wonder Boy 5 Monster World 3?
Anyway, we'll be back next week with some stuff and some things. I don't 100% know if this is what's going to be happening, but we may be doing Metal Gear and we may have a guest
Metal
host
Gear.
on. So, get ready for war. War never changes.
changes.
And as always, let us cling
Let us
together.
cling together.